Exit shock. Brad leaves Port Charles in a storm of secrets and scandal. Port Charles has never been short on morally ambiguous characters, but few have stirred as much chaos, redemption, and scandal as Brad. Once again, this unpredictable figure has shaken the foundations of General Hospital with a sudden departure that left not only Lucas but viewers stunned. His exit in the May 8, 2025 episode is more than just a quiet farewell. It's a culmination of betrayal, desperation, and a final grasp at redemption that may have come too late. Brad's trajectory over the years has resembled a pendulum, swinging between self-serving schemes and desperate bids for acceptance. His past mistakes are infamous. The baby switch that tore through Michael and Willow's lives, his entanglement with shady medical dealings, and his long-standing habit of doing the wrong things for what he believed were the right reasons. But when Brad returned to Port Charles last year, it appeared he had turned over a new leaf, until that leaf began to decay from the inside out. Brad's descent this time didn't start with evil intentions. On the contrary, his motivation was heartbreakingly human, a longing to be better, especially for Lucas. Even after their marriage had dissolved, and Lucas had started seeing Marco, Brad seemed determined to rebuild his life on integrity. He returned to the hospital, took on modest roles, and kept his head down, an uncharacteristic move for someone who once thrived on manipulation and leverage. But Portia Robinson changed that. When Brad learned that Portia had manipulated test results tied to Heather Weber, a woman whose volatile mental state made such tampering unforgivable, he found himself holding a powerful secret. And just like that, the cleaner path he had chosen began to veer off course. At first, it was subtle, a whispered threat, a demand for inclusion on a conference trip with Lucas. It seemed small, almost innocuous. But power, once reclaimed, is difficult to relinquish. Portia, however, wasn't one to be cornered. She retaliated in a way that was both dangerous and deeply unethical. She forced Brad's hand, coercing him to obtain ketamine under the table, a move that would not only compromise Drew Kane but potentially ruin lives. It was a moment of reckoning for Brad. No longer just a passive accomplice, he became a direct enabler in something deeply wrong. That was the moment the weight of his decisions began to crush him. Rather than spiral into his old ways completely, Brad made a bold, and perhaps final, choice. He traded the ketamine information for a payout from Drew, a hush-hush transaction that ensured he wouldn't leave Port Charles empty-handed. But money wasn't the real motivation. It was escape. Redemption might no longer be within his reach, but distance could be. Freedom from Portia. From judgment. From temptation. His final act in town was theatrical but sobering. Dressed in a crisp, tailored suit, he walked into General Hospital with the poise of a man on a mission. He handed in his resignation with no fanfare, simply stating it was time for something new. And then came the goodbye to Lucas, a man who had once been his entire world. There were no grand declarations, no apologies or pleas. Just a quiet acknowledgement of a love that had long since fractured, and the ghost of what might have been if Brad had been a better man, sooner. Lucas, for his part, was composed, but clearly shaken. His relationship with Marco might have brought him some semblance of peace, but Brad's departure marked the end of an era. However flawed, it was one they had shared. The air between them was heavy with things left unsaid, regrets, longing, and an undercurrent of forgiveness that never fully took form. Now, Brad is gone. His apartment is empty. His hospital badge is void. And the silence he leaves behind is filled with questions. Where is he going? Is this truly goodbye? Or is he simply waiting for the next opportunity to reinvent himself, away from the shadows of Port Charles? Brad's exit doesn't just mark the end of a storyline, it encapsulates the moral ambiguity that General Hospital thrives on. In a city where heroes fall and villains find grace, Brad has always existed in the gray. And perhaps that's why his departure hits differently. Because even now, after everything, a part of us still hopes he'll come back and finally get it right. Until then, all that's left are the consequences of his choices, and the ripple effects they're sure to have on everyone he's touched. Portia's secrets are no longer safe. Drew has blood money on his hands. And Lucas? He may have said goodbye with dignity, but his heart may never stop asking what might have been. Only time will tell if Brad Cooper's story has truly ended, or if it's simply paused, waiting to stir the drama of Port Charles once more. Would you like a follow-up article on Portia's side of this story?